basically this is our VLE. This is our Blackboard homepage. So what I've opened up is a module shell for, as you can see up here, our Chemistry 2 module. So this is the Chemistry 2 for Pharmacy module. So I'm just going to change this to student view so you can see the way a student sees it. Okay. So when a student logs into the shell, this is what they'll see. They'll have a welcome notice that gives them the basic information about what they can find, where they can find it. So staff contacts, where you know who we are and how you can contact us and what support we can give. Module information, which contains all the information related to the module, the handbook, the learning material link, where you'll find all the lectures, the recordings, and so forth. Lab resources, all the things linked to laboratory work and reports. Discussion forums, where we'll create forums where students can write and ask questions to us. And of course, the assessment link, where they get all the information about the assessments. And of course, Turnitin is where they submit their assessments through. So if I go up, you'll see those links replicated on the left-hand side. So students can find what they're looking for. So I'm just going to focus on the learning materials and the lab resources just to show you the type of stuff we have. So if I click into this, you'll see we've got a couple of, 4 folders here. So we've got a folder containing the lecture materials, a folder containing tutorial questions, a folder containing tutorial answers, and these are the folders that contain the materials from our exam practice and revision support classes that we do. So I'm just going to go into lectures, and you can see this is split into the 14 different lectures, which you'll have over the sort of 10-week term. So I'm just going to, let's go into lecture 4. You can see this is about the topic of buffer chemistry. So this one here will open up the lecture on my screen. So can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is my PDF of the entire lecture. Okay, so I can have that all there. So if I go back from that, hopefully I can go back. Yes. Now this one on the right hand side, this little symbol here, this is what we call Panopto. This is DMU's software for recorded lectures. So if I click onto this, it'll open up a second window where I've got the recorded lecture. So I'm just going to mute it so we can't see it. But if I just talk through some of this, I'm not sure if you'll hear the audio, but obviously my staff member is talking at the same time and going through the lecture. So I can forward, rewind, and of course there's the annotations on screen as they're writing when they're teaching it. So the students have actually got the working out for certain problems. So we've got, and let me see if I can open up a bit of it where there's a solution for a problem. So here, for example, we've got a member of staff talking about this region of a graph. And as they're talking about the graph, they're annotating the graph, speaking to the students about the graph. So even when they're playing back and watching the recording, they're seeing these annotations on screen so they can follow exactly what's being said by the teacher in question. And of course, these are all available for the students. And in fact, if I open this up in a different format, there's an option, which I can maybe show you another time, but there's an option to actually search for keywords in the recording. So instead of having to play the whole recording, you can just look for certain bits of it, which I'll show you maybe a little bit later if you're interested to see that. So there are 2 main things the students will tend to refer to, lecture 4 and lecture 4 recording, lecture 4 materials. These are all sort of video links we give students to just help support their understanding. So this is a direct link to a YouTube video that they can just open and watch right on the VLE. So all these 4 are just direct links to YouTube videos. So if I just click watch video, it'll open the YouTube video right in the middle of screen. The student doesn't even have to go to YouTube. Everything's embedded into our VLE. Of course, this is the same for all the lectures. Tutorial questions. So they'll get weekly questions on each of the topics that they'll do. So if I open these up, the one who does this, they'll find a whole range of exam type problems and questions for them to work to as part of their self-study. And go to answers, tutorial 2, you'll find the full solutions in blue text for the entire problems, so the students can double check all their own working out. So again, it's just something to support them in their self-study. And you can see there's a huge amount of resources for them to use. And this is not the only resource. In fact, we've also got module-specific workbooks that are about 100 pages of pure exam-style questions that students can buy at the Philip Tasker building to support their studies. And the last folder, exam practice. So it's just a recording of a worked example going through an exam paper. So I'm just going to mute it so we don't get the sound feedback. But yeah, this is one of my staff members just going through an exam practice paper with all the solutions recorded, so students can just double check their answers and look at it essentially. And this is the one that's got the good search function. So if I click up here, you can see there's captions for the entire recording. So students can read if they don't understand it. And if they're not sure about something, let's say this student was struggling with something called, I don't know, buffers. So if I type in buffer here and press the search button, it'll find every bit of the lecture recording where the word buffer was mentioned. So here it's there. I'll click there and it'll automatically forward me to that section of the recording. So students can focus and search the recording, because it's an hour and a half. It's a long time to watch sometimes. We give students plenty of past paper exam practice so they can always practice exam papers. So if I open up my chemistry ones, we've got 2017, 2018, 2019 exam papers. This was pre-COVID. Then we've got online exam papers, 2020, 2021, and the reset exams. So there's numerous amount of past paper examples, including the answers for students to look at and check. So they get access to all of the past papers, and it's really good for them to just check their understanding, see what they're doing, if it's right or wrong. And these are uploaded towards the end of the term when it's a few weeks away from the exam, so they can start looking at practicing their exams. So something also very, very useful. I know in certain institutions they may not get things like this, but we always provide them with exam practice early on, so they just get a feel of what's to come, so they're not sort of shocked when it comes to the day of the exam. They're only missing the face-to-face element if they fall sick, for example, for one day or something. Yes, the interaction is not there, but they haven't lost out on everything from the class. They've still got the recording to fall back on. So yeah, it's massive. Really, really advantageous. Absolutely. I mean, the resources are just so massive that if they engage with them properly and invest the time that we suggest them to invest, they could get some of the highest grades even without having had chemistry before coming to the MUIC. From previous experience, the students who have excelled here and gone on to MPharm, they've found their first year to be easy, right? Because of the way we're setting them up, not just academically, but the skills they need when it comes to UK higher education. So yeah, I mean, if they focus their energy and time on everything we provide them, they'll be very, very successful. Things like searching options through the recording, and there's even an option for transcribing the recording, so there's subtitles if required. So there's just so much we can do with it. I mean, students can download the recordings, save them onto their phones, and listen to them while they're on the train if they want. You know, really, that's the flexibility of the recordings. Really, it's really, really fantastic feature. I mean, when I was in university 10 or 15 years ago, I wish I had the option of something like this. The VLE, as soon as their registration is completed with the MUIC and DMU, they would get access to the VLE. However, of course, these resources get built over time. So, for example, they wouldn't have access to a week 9 lecture at the start of week 1, for example.
Of course.
It'll get built weekly by weekly, right? But yeah, from the get-go, it's there for them to use. And quite often, a lot of the team, my teaching team, they'll upload resources a week or a few days in advance so they can view something before coming to the class, so they can get their head around it a little bit. So this is something I've always encouraged, and I tend to do with my teaching team: upload the stuff a few days before. Then students can maybe even download it, print it, so they can annotate it when they go to class themselves. So it just gives them plenty of help. This was pre-COVID. We've always done this. We've just built it to make it much more much more usable, and we've embedded it to other things as well when it comes to students. So we've been doing this. I mean, I've been in the role since 2017. I've been doing this since 2017 in my classes and my recordings, and so has the college. But in through COVID, we've just increased the different ways we can provide this kind of support. So if I was to show you my module shelf from 2018, for example, you'll probably still find the recordings on there because I was doing the recordings back then. Yeah, a week after the actual lecture, because the video gets processed, we do a bit of editing, but then it gets straight uploaded onto this VLE. So within 3 or 4 days of the lecture taking place, the students will have this to access for the rest of their academic year as much as they want to. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of these stuff is only accessible electronically. I mean, there's a few things that will provide students physically. I mentioned the sort of the chemistry workbook, which is like a module-specific chemistry book that contains questions and answers. In fact, I can show you this book. It's not a must-buy, but it's highly, highly advisable. I mean, the students who buy this and use it, they tend to do very, very well because it's just focused on exam practice and exam problems. So let me share this with you so you can have a look at it. So it's a wire-bound printed copy. You know, it's a nice quality book. So that's your cover page of the book. So students buy it, laminated front cover, wire-bound. Then if we go through, they've got a place there they can write their name, and they've got a contents page that's split into all of those sections. And these sections are basically all the topics they'll study in the module. So 1 to 7 are the topics. They've got a periodic table. They've got an appendix with all the things they need. They've got answers to every single problem, and of course a reference list for when I made the book. I used some sources. So if I go through it, you've got all the questions on the first topic. You've got a worked example that I put in there so students know how to do an example calculation. And for every section, they've got one of these worked examples. They've also got pages where there's key formula that they need to know when it comes to their exam. So this topic is all about equilibrium constant. These are all the formulas they need to know. So if I go down to the next page, I've got a worked example using that formula and deducing an answer. If I go further down, the next topic is acid-base chemistry. So there's a page with key formula, worked example, more key formula, and another worked example. Another page for formula and a worked example. You can kind of see the trend of what I'm doing here. For every topic, you'll find a worked example. So there's another worked example here.
And as I go down, we'll find more worked examples. When it comes to organic chemistry, the worked example is in the form of an example reaction. So here's an example reaction. If I go further down, there's another example reaction here for students to refer to.
And if I just skip right to the end of the book, what you'll find is a few bits that students can usually use and refer to throughout. So right at the end, they've got the appendix and periodic table. So first bit, periodic table, a must for them, right in the back for them to refer to all the answers. Then they've got an appendix which contains the key things they need to solve some of the answers. So names of common ions in chemistry, the names of some common acids, bases, and salts in chemistry, the values for a lot of the key constants and unit conversions in chemistry. So this is how to convert all the units we'll use in chemistry: temperature, pressure, volume, mass. All the key symbols and their values when it comes to constants in chemistry: gases, volumes, masses. Then if I go further down, the answers to every single problem in the book, right at the back, all there for the students to refer to throughout. So there's about 9 pages of answers, and then of course the reference list. So this is something I've designed and created, sort of built up over the past few years. So this is not only there for chemistry 1, it's there for chemistry 2, and it's even there for the cell biology module. So there's 3 workbooks that students can buy to support their self-study.